director, and all-around awesome dude. Afternoon, my friend. How are you?
Good afternoon. If only I was to find myself in that esteemed category, but maybe you should have like a B-list intro for the more struggling creatives.
Love it. That'll be a weird brief to send through to my voiceover guy. Can you do me a voiceover that's...
Forgive me for looking at the screen.
Yeah, no, just to let everyone know that, as I said, we're going out lots and lots and lots to talk about. We got loads of people, and I'm sure they're going to have their questions, asking you, how's things? How you coping? You losing your marbles yet?
No, I mean the funny thing is I was going through a pretty tough period in my life, particularly last year, and that sort of resulted in me being really financially quite a difficult position financially. Couldn't really afford to go out or sort of go to restaurants. I had to cut down the number of events that I went to support. If friends of mine had plays on, I had to kind of beg them to give me a free ticket, and whereas usually I would pay for one. So so my life hadn't really changed that much because I couldn't really afford to go out and do very much.
Yeah.
So I was sort of basically staying in and doing my own thing and focusing mainly on writing, and the main thing that I miss is doing the work with the Outcast, which I guess we'll talk about in a bit. So compared to some people, I think I've had it a bit easier because I was already going through a period of adjustment, and that period of adjustment involves staying in a lot and not spending money and not going out.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I suddenly had to go through this radical change, unlike somebody like my friend Alex Walton, who was in the middle of doing a great play, and literally it had just opened, and he was, funnily enough, he was playing a paratrooper based on the life of Stuart Cardy, and his play, of course, got pulled, and they did a lot of work on that show to get that show up and running. And imagine to go through all that, get your play up in a really prestigious off-west. So I consider myself quite lucky that I hadn't just managed to get one of my own projects off the ground, and then suddenly we completely demoralised me after the lucky ones, really, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with you. Actually, I think as the creatives, i.e., yourself, myself, and the the millions of other creatives around the world for whatever facet that presents itself in, I don't know that it's a huge difference for us. Like, okay, so business wise, Corona's fucked everything basically. Economically wise and business wise, it screwed everything. But I did writings and all that kind of stuff. I did all that from home. Or you and I did. We don't have to go out job every day. That routine is now broken. There's no kids running around that we need to take to school and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm lucky in a lot of ways, but the one area I'm not lucky in is it will impact me later when it's finished. And if I stop and think about that, I go crazy. I went through I think everybody goes through dips during this thing, and I had a bit of a bad dip a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Where I really about how much money I'm going to owe. I can't afford all my rent at the moment, and that debt is just building and building and building. And I know there's a lot of other people in that situation, and again, a lot of them worse than me. But you can only look at your life out of your own window, So.
Are like gun wielding, marching on the capitals in America and demanding that the and so forth open those states. And say, very good point. And that is this, that the thoughts that you've just been having and not thinking about forward and going, how much am I going to make? Can I cover rent? Can I still cover my car? Do I need to sell this? Do I need to get rid of that? So on and so on. Okay, I'm going to give you a little context in a second what that means. But what he said basically was that these are vulnerable people. These are the people that society are not going to protect. They're not the bankers and the politicians and the Fortune 500 and the people running hedge funds. It's the left behind, and it will be slap extra VAT and all the extra stuff. And
I think the world can't go back to the way it was. I think there has to be a massive change, and for that massive change to have to happen, there's going to be some. I took part in a couple of their protests last year. A niche organisation who everybody screaming from the rooftops, and it's trying to heal itself, and get lost. I don't want to talk about Corona too much because you've done that with all your other guests, and we could chat about it for the impacts it's going to have. But I don't think anything I see anybody listening, sadly.
Unfortunately,
I'm not for him.
I know, right?
I wish I was hanging out
I know.
in Marbella after the coronavirus.
If you're listening, Adam, send me a sangria. But yeah, he was saying that I've lost my train of thought now. What was he saying? I don't know what he was saying. Oh, that was it. That was it. That was it. That was it. That in Spain, tomorrow they're opening the bars and so forth again, and restaurants. Now, not to full capacity, but like you can go for a beer wearing a mask and gloves.
So, I mean, how does that work? I mean, bars are quite small.
Yeah.
And women will know from going to bars that they often have to queue for quite some time while women do their makeup and they're trying to get in the two cubicles, including the one that's broken, to do their business or whatever. Men queuing in toilets in bars, even a bar that's not that busy, can be quite a negotiation when you get into that little room and you're trying to slide between people. How do we do social distancing when we're going to the loo?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is nonsense.
Absolutely.
Opening the bars is the I can't think of a more crazy idea, because you go to bars to talk and to socialise people, and bars have music on and the music is loud, and so to talk to people, you know, Ben Elton did a brilliant sketch about this way back in the 80s. You have to get quite close to people and you have to shout to be heard. So we're going to have bars with no music and no football games on the television, so that people
and also
stand close to each other. Just simple things like that. People aren't thinking it through properly.
But Lance,
I don't know.
when people can't stay home and wash their hands and not touch themselves and touch other things when they're stone cold sober, what the hell are you going to do when they're hammered? Because alcohol is an inebriant, of course. So are you going to take away the music and the alcohol from the bar? Therefore, it's just a place now. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
We should talk about films and creative things.
I feel like this is going to be a long one, so I'm pacing myself.
Anymore.
Just though,
I know there's people tuning in to hear about Paratrooper and what's happened with Pegasus Bridge and Diamonds in the Sky and
awesome.
Outcasts, blah blah blah, a whole load of things we got to talk about.
Okay, we'll jump over then to the first one of those. So I think we're going to talk about. Let's do Borderlands first. But before we just before we do that, I'm going to pop the poster and the trailer up on the screen in a second. We'll have a chat about it. I'm going to jump into the Facebook feed here. Henrietta, Ashina, David, and Steen are all chiming in. They're watching here. So guys, if you have any questions at all or any comments or anything at all, really, just you want to contribute to the conversation, pop it into the comments and on any of the various platforms that you may be watching in on. What's that?
That might be Steen, my stunt coordinator.
It is, yeah, Steen Young.
Yeah. Do you know what? He's a really, really lovely guy. There's two stunt coordinators that I know personally in the industry that I would really recommend. Steen Young is one of them, and he's kind of my go-to guy. And the other one is Dan Stiles, who's another really lovely guy.
Okay.
Great with people, and really knows his stuff. And he's really come a long way. And I've known Dan a long time back in the day from when he's just an actor, and I'm so proud of everything he's achieved. I'm going to be giving quite a few shout-outs to other people I know today, actually, which is quite unusual for most people. They usually just talk about themselves for 2 hours.
Actually, before we get to Borderlands, I wanna talk about somebody you can give a shout out to, and that is the one and only Mr. Tom Hanks. Tell me that story.
Yes, Hanks. Yes.
Tell me that story. I tweeted him last night, by the way. So let's see if he comes back to me.
So I doubt Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson are watching, but if they are, Mr. Hanks, just so you know, I followed your career since you did Bachelor Party, which I saw as a double bill at the cinema in the 80s with another film called Revenge of the Nerds. And actually, they were both really funny films. I mean, they're both really un-PC and very 80s. But Tom Hanks did a lot of improvisation in Bachelor Party, and I could tell he was like really talented just from watching that film, which was very much of the Porky's kind of mould.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I've been a huge fan of his way before Saving Private Ryan and all that. I watched all of his films like Volunteers and The Man with the One Red Shoe and some of the stuff that didn't get cinema releases over here. So when I did sort of the first feature film I was reasonably proud of, which was The Journey, which was set in Greece. And of course, Rita Wilson is a massive fan of all things Greece, and she introduced that to Tom, her husband. So because of the death of a couple of people that I worked with in the last 24 months, about a year and a half ago, I started this thing called the 100 Letters Project as well. And I thought if Alan Tompkins let him know it was coming,
Mm-hmm.
we would negate that kind of lawyers on the front door thing, because I didn't want anything from him. I just I just wanted to send him that letter, and it was quite a long letter about all the things in his career that I've enjoyed. And I'm also told by lots of my friends that have worked with him that he's one of the nicest guys in the industry, and I believe it. He comes across that way. So I sent that off to him. Another person that I always wanted to work with that I'm not going to get to is Judi Dench. And
another legend.
And I actually wrote. You have no idea the lengths that I went to in the last 10 years to try and work with her. I wrote a script especially for her and her daughter to do, because I knew she was getting older and I knew her eyesight was having issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the best thing to do is to write a film for her and her daughter to be in together, where they're playing mother and daughter, and set it somewhere really nice so that basically they can go on holiday and we can make a movie. And I wrote this film set in Sardinia called The Kiss That Would Last a Lifetime, about this old couple meeting in their 70s who fell in love as kids at the school gates. And that was my big stab at trying to get to work with Judi. I don't need to write Judi a letter as part of the 100 Letters Project, because I already know Judi and she knows I always wanted to work with her. And I've been very fortunate enough to meet her many times and have champagne with her in her dressing room a couple of times, which is endlessly entertaining. Absolutely, and I just tell you, absolutely amazing woman. And if you look at Finchie Williams, her daughter's Twitter, you can see Judi's doing things like dressing up in bunny rabbit outfits in the garden and doing silly things with ears to make people laugh during Corona. And there's not much else that she can do, but she's as nice as she seems. I can tell you, and always been very supportive of my work. And I wrote to her fairly regularly, and a couple of times a year, and she would always reply, even if it took 3 to 6 months for her to get back to me, always reply.
I've never had the pleasure of meeting her, really. I was on Ken Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express for a couple of days, and of course she's in that. So I seen her from afar. One of the days, I think it was like one of my last days, was one of her, I don't know if it was her first day, but it was one of the first days that she and I had a day together, essentially. We weren't working together, but we were there together. And I seen her from afar, and she seemed like she was just really, really lovely. You know yourself, you've been on big sets. These Hollywood stars come in, and there's this drama, and there's the whatever. She just seemed, she seemed the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, it's, yourself, like the word gets around. It's like, okay, traveling Judy. The people, all the word gets around the headsets, and that it's Judy's coming. All this kind of stuff. But then she arrived, and it was just like, hey guys, how's things? Oh, we're ready. Cool. Yeah, let's have a coffee. There was no bullshit with her. It was just like, yeah, I'm here, I'm ready. Give me a holler when you need me.
Funny story about her is I went to see her in a play. I think it was The Royal Family was the play. She did that, and she did another one, a two-hander, Breath of Life, with Maggie.
Maggie Smith?
Maggie
Smith.
Maggie Smith, right. It was either Breath of Life or Royal Family. I can't remember which, but both times I got to meet her afterwards. And one of the times I was on really heavy medication, and I was under, part of the instruction was not to mix them with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go and visit Judi backstage, she's always got a massive tray of champagne for all her guests. And she had her assistant sort of come up and offer me this very nice looking champagne. And I said, I'm sorry, Judy, I won't take that. I'm on some meds at the moment, so I'm not supposed to mix those with alcohol. And she just looked at me and went, don't talk bollocks, Lance. Don't talk bollocks. You'll have a glass of champagne. This is good champagne, and you'll have one. Okay. And it was very good champagne, and I'm glad I had it, because I didn't have any bad effects with it whatsoever. So. And
now you can say you had a very nice champagne with Judi Dench, which is something I'd love to be able to say, but.
I've done it 3 times.
3 times. I've never, as I said, I've never met her, but I'd love to. She's like, I
see her after that at stage. She will always invite me up backstage. I mean, what an amazing person!
Yeah.
Just amazing person.
She really is. She's an absolute advocate for for cinema and for the arts in this country and all of them, but specifically this one. And she is
I know she's
legendary.
a big lovey. You call her a lovey, I know she's kind of very much a lovey, but she's really not as well. She's just very, she's just very one of the one of the gang. Do you know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like you said on set. She kind of puts herself at the same level as everyone else.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
again, I'm not going to say because I didn't technically meet her, but there didn't seem to be any sort of a hierarchy or any sort of a any sort of a just diva crap or any crap at all. Really, it was
no,
just
no,
like,
no.
here I am. I'm ready when you are. Let's play whenever the camera's ready.
And I could just tell she'd be just like that if you were directing her. Not that she would need any direction, and so it's probably one of my biggest regrets that I'll not get to direct her in something. Anyway, let's
Hmm.
Borderlands. We were going to talk
Yes,
about
just going to shout out to Jimmy Bush, who's watching in, our good friend, and Diane Knight as
He's on
well.
my list of people to mention. I've got a card with his name on right here. Funnily enough.
Alrighty. Well, yeah. Let's get into Borderlands because okay. So for people who don't know, you are a writer director, and
Yeah, we
you've.
probably should have said that at the beginning.
I mean, it's on the title. But for those who don't know, so all two or three of you, Lance is a writer director who does dabble in other things as well, whether it be producing and various other things. But you write across the board, right? So it's plays, scripts, whether that be for television or film, short or feature. I mean, we're going to get to it in a while, but you wrote your own novel as well, Diamonds in the Sky. We'll get to that in a bit. So that's another,
Fictional
writing.
fiction. It's not a biography.
No, no, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a novel series, first of six. We'll come back to that. I've written about 17, 18 plays, of which maybe 12 or 13 have been performed. I think 13. I think Borderlands was the unlucky 13th.
Oh, okay.
Although it was a great show.
It was indeed.
And then I've written probably about 10 TV pilots. As yet unproduced, some of them very close to being produced. I've written God knows how many feature films. We'll talk about some of them later.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which have been made, some of which are in development hell, some of which are with other companies, some of which I'm going to direct, and some of which I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't direct everything that I write, and I don't write everything that I direct. I also do a little bit of acting, and I do second unit direction, usually action stuff, but sometimes with directors who are directing themselves, I might come in and do some scenes when they want a second ear.
Mm-hmm.
If they're acting in the show in their film, like I did on Mark Zamet's Homeless Ashes, I did a load of scenes for him.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk Borderlands. So this is a play that you wrote and that you put on in the Hen and Chicken here in London in August of last, was it? Oh yeah, we're going to pop the poster up on the screen now as well.
You can pop the poster up on the screen. I've got the original program here as well with my lovely cast on the front and
some very recognizable heads in there. A lot of our old friends. There, Tony in the middle and Lydia. Those are the only two out of that cast. Oh, that's Fiona as well there.
So, yeah, I mean, Borderlands was the first. First of all, I need to give a big shout out to Dick and Tolson,
Mm-hmm.
co-directed the show with me. We had two casts, and although we both gave input on both casts, we kind of had a primary cast each, and that was interesting, and it was double cast, and we mixed the cast up a little way through the run through. And this is a low budget. Our budget was non-existent. I think we lost money on the show as well, which was a shame, because with any kind of fringe theatre production, and there's so many of them on. Well, not at the moment, but when there isn't a pandemic, there's so many of them on any given week. I think somebody was in a show on the Fringe that I knew every week of 2019. Every single week there was someone that invited me to something.
Wow.
So you're fighting tooth and nail to get an audience in, and you're very much dependent on your core fan base of supporters to come in and support you. and we had great support, and we had a good audiences.
Mm-hmm.
We were never half empty.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
But you
which
had quite a unique twist, though. The way you wrote this show was quite unique. In that, because you briefly mentioned before. First of all, in a normal play, there's one cast. Something happens. It starts in the middle. It starts to start, middle and end. That's it. Whereas you had two casts, and tell us what the difference in having the two casts and the audience participation.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we show the trailer first, and
Yeah.
then because we did a promo trailer that went up online. It's very short. I think Jay's got it.
I do indeed, yeah. So I'll tell you what, we'll run the trailer now, or the promo feed, and then we can have a chinwag at the other end.
Yeah.
I just know that she's lying.
Yeah, 7th of October. Oh, he's gone. 7th of October, that was running at the Hen and Chicken of last for, I believe it was 6 weeks. Was it 6 or 4 or 5?
Yeah. I thought that was going to give me enough time to dash through a week, but it was pretty tight.
Don't worry. I covered you. Yeah, so that was October 7th of last year. And... Yeah, that was the Hen and Chicken, but the difference in this one, opposed to any regular play, was the two audiences to start with, and also the integration of audience participation within the story.
Yeah,
which
I mean, there's a lot of. I've always been my shows have always been leaning in this direction. There's a lot of shows now which are sort of immersive theatre, and of course you have the other extreme end of that, which is secret cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I love all that stuff, and I think anything that you can do to make the audience feel more involved in a show. I went to see an amazing production that my friend Will Johnson was in. We'll talk about him later. Of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe at the Bridge Theatre just before Christmas. Fantastic actress in that called Kazai Joseph, who I hope to be working with soon on another film project. She's amazing, giving her a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the audience really involved in that play, in a big play, in a big theatre, and you were all like part of Aslan's army,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we were all like, the audience were all like the statues in the castle that got turned back to life in the army, and the way that they involved the audience was really clever. On a much smaller scale, we kind of did a similar thing where the whole play, Borderlands, takes place in a holding pen in Heathrow, where this woman who's come back from the Middle East, she's come back with a kid, and something with the kid's paperwork isn't quite right. And the audience are considered to be other people kind of in the queue for immigration,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also kind of a fly on the wall to what's going on in this interrogation. So it's an interrogation play, and it's two officers, one older, one younger, one black, one white, interrogating this woman who is a British-born woman, but she's got a mixed background.
Mm-hmm.
She's got relatives in the Middle East and so on. So the whole ethnic makeup of the play and the background of the characters was very representative of the kind of current social narrative of today, which was something I really wanted to take on.
Yeah.
And then the log line for the play was everybody in the room has a secret. So all of the characters start off as one thing, but they end up like an onion, gradually revealing bits of themselves to the audience as the play progresses. It's quite a tight play. It's only like 65 minutes, one act straight through. And then you get to this point at the end of the play where we involve the audience, and the leading officer turns around and he has to make a decision. And the decision that they've got to make is release the woman and let her and the child go, or detain them for further questioning until the next day. Now, by the time the audience reaches that decision, they know that if the woman is to be believed, if she's detained, her mother, who is ill and waiting for her to come home, the health of the mother might be put at risk. In fact, the mother might die. But then they know that if they let her go and it's the wrong decision, and the child is in fact not hers, which they may or may not be, then they've unwittingly trafficked a child.
Facilitated trafficking, yeah.
The audience have to vote on that decision. And this is a play that we're going to do again, by the way, with a different cast. We're going to double up the cast again, but we are going to do it again. I hope to have an actor that I'm working with on a number of other projects called Johnny Neal in the cast this time round.
Oh, yeah. I know Johnny, yeah.
I'll talk about him again later. But that's the vote. And we did 11 shows. And during the run of the thing, we had 6... votes to, we did 12 shows. We had 7 votes to release and 5 votes to detain. So the audience didn't always vote the same way, and I think 3 or 4 nights it was close by a couple of votes. We had to do recounts. And Dickon and I, the other director, we were both dressed up as immigration officers, and we sat in the audience and stayed in character the entire time. And then we were part of the voting process count thing, and at one point, one night, a line went wrong, and I had to actually enter a scene and steer a scene in a different direction, which was really difficult and quite embarrassing for me, not for my actors. But it was good. So you had this atmosphere in the theatre where anything could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you were definitely pushing the boundaries of what felt comfortable. Was it your intention when you were writing that to do just that, to make the audience feel uncomfortable, to make them think about something that mightn't be PC, and also was it what's the word I'm looking for? Was it intentional or was it predetermined that the characters would be, like, say, the white one would be white, the black one would be black, for example? Because in this, for the most part, minorities are usually the ones that are not represented as well as they should be. But yet in this, it was the minorities giving the other minority a hard time. So you felt a bit weird by that. You were like, what's going on?
Yeah, I did everything I could to break stereotypes
in
the writing, but the way that the play was written, it had to be an older and a younger officer, and it didn't matter what their race was. And actually, the original plan was to have an older black officer and a younger white officer in one cast, and then an older white officer and a younger black officer in the other cast. Unfortunately, in the castings, we couldn't pair up people correctly. I saw this amazing white kid, a young white male actor called Ashley Hodgson, who absolutely nailed the role in the casting, but I didn't have an older black female actress that worked right.
That could have went opposite him, yeah.
So I couldn't cast him. It was really frustrating, and we've never done. My Sharon Sorrentino does all my casting, and she was there with the casting. Amazing casting director. If you need one, Sharon Sorrentino is your lady, and she was there, and it was the most difficult casting decision we've ever tried to do. And the funny thing is, Tony Fadil, who's a good friend of mine, who doesn't normally do theatre, who auditioned, and everybody got their sides in advance of the audition. Of all the actors that came to the casting, he was the one that we thought was going to be the weakest because he hadn't done any theatre before, and he admitted it's not his comfort ground, but we wanted to give him a chance because he was interested in doing it. But I think both we and he thought he wasn't going to get in it. He was the only actor that came, and we saw about 40 people. He was the only one that came to the audition who was completely off book.
That's the film training right there.
He was completely off book. He didn't need his sides. Didn't matter which scene we did. He had about 3 different scenes, and it didn't matter which scene we did. He knew them all. And he was the only actor of my 6 actors in my cast. And don't get me wrong, they were all wonderful. But he was the only one of the 6 cast members who came to day one of rehearsals, and he was completely off book. I mean, he was completely off book from day one. And
there's quite a lot to it. It was quite a wordy play because I came to see it obviously to support yourself and Tony I know also, and I came on was it the last night or the penultimate night? I don't remember. I think it was the last night. But I seen
You came on the Saturday night, the second from last night.
Second from last, yeah. It was Tony and Lydia. That's who I got to see play. So I wasn't privy to the other cast, unfortunately, but I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was really good. If anyone's ever been to the Hen and Chicken,
that night as well.
you know, she's watching in as well. So yeah, she is indeed. Let me just jump over to the comments. We're getting quite a few through, so I don't want to let them back up too much. Try and keep on top of that. Sean Cronin's watching in, our good friend. I had him on yesterday. He's mad as a bag of spanners, but we love him. Sean, buddy, how's things? Steve Ward's here. Lydia's watching in. Kira Brannigan, an old friend from back home. Hey, Kira. Diane Knight as well. Paul375 on YouTube is saying afternoon, chaps. Let's see. Ellen Morse is asking. He's asking, what do you prefer writing, Lance? Plays, TV, or film? Irregardless of short or feature.
I don't have a preference. I absolutely love writing all of them. I've just got into. I'm working on three different television projects at the moment. One of which has a really good chance of getting made, which I'm working on with Craig Fairbrass. I think I'm allowed to say that. Mm-hmm. And called Second Skin. I don't want to say anything about it, but me and him have been going back and forth on the script. I'm really enjoying that. And it's a genre that I've always wanted to tackle that I haven't.
Interesting.
And I consider myself a writer that's comfortable in any genre, anything. So I get excited when there's a genre that I want to do. I wrote a Western for. There's a whole load of indie directors who I call the crowdfunding generation, and I'll mention a few of them: Patrick Ryder, James Bush, Rain McCormick. These are all friends of mine. These are all lovely people. These are all people that give you time, and they're all people that will also promote your work as well as promoting their own. You know.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people that don't do that. That they only promote their own stuff. These guys will do that. Matthew Holmes, my good friend in Australia, who did The Legend of Ben Hall. These are all the crowd funding generation, and we're all sort of looking for projects and putting irons in the fire. So I try and do as many things as I can. And so I wrote a script for Patrick Ryder, which is a Western. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I think I can say it's a Western. And I'd never done a Western before, but I always wanted to write a Western. So I was just all over that straight away. I think I wrote the first draft of that in like 6 days. And then I did Hexed for James Bush, which was a horror, very traditional horror. Again, I'd not done a traditional horror script before. Again, I was all over that. I think I did the first draft of that in 11 days.
Yeah, Jimmy and I are producing that one.
That's right. You're working on that together. In fact, I think I recommended you to him, if I remember rightly.
I really loved that, actually. It was Yulia. I can't remember if it was Yulia first or Jimmy. One of them brought it to me. Probably Jimmy. I really loved it, though. I thought it was a really cool take on a witch story, you know?
He gave me a very specific brief. He had some characters in mind, and I came up with some others. I think Yulia contributed to the story as well, and they basically gave me a very specific brief, and I was like, that's all I need. And I went away and I wrote a draft, and then he would come back with notes. He'd like, tone down the comedy here. I want this character to be a bit more serious. That comedy bit's okay. And because I always put in funny bits, even if it is a really dark script. And that's how we worked. And it went back and forth. I just did another script for the Tripod guys, who I'm going to give a shout out to as well. Jake Francis, Ellie, and Joe.
Absolutely.
Riley. Really lovely bunch of guys, and I just did a script for them called The Showdown at the Big Komodo, and that's kind of a cross between Invaders from Mars and an 80s film called Warning Sign that most people won't have seen. I'm not allowed to say anything else about that script other than we worked on it. That's all I'm allowed to say. But I really enjoyed writing that script. Again, that was another genre that I hadn't really done before. So I don't really have a preference over TV, stage, or film to answer the question. As long as the subject and the story and the characters interest me and I can get into their psychology, as soon as I'm in their psychology and I know the world that I'm writing in, I'm off like a rocket. I write faster than anybody else I know, and and not at the cost of quality either.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get to the end of the first draft, that's always the hardest bit. And the faster I can get to the end of the first draft, then I take my time and I go back and I'm
Finesse it then.
I don't do a first draft in 5 days and leave it at that, just so people know.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and then take my time and finesse it. I'm on the 4th draft of Behind Closed Doors, another film I'm doing with Jason Fleming, and that's taken many weeks to finesse that.
Mm-hmm.
But the first draft of it I did fairly quickly,
I'm curious myself because, I've known you for years now, and I know you're super, super fast at writing as well. Very, very, very good, but also super fast. But I'm curious, when you have an idea that's either come out of your own head or it's brought to you, irrelevant, doesn't matter. It's a movie. I don't know. I'm going to make up something now. Let's say it's a movie about James Bond. James Bond goes to Mars, right? That's the movie.
You don't have to make something up. I've got loads that are in that sort of stage. I can pick one. So.
But my question is, when you have an idea that's either brought to you or comes out of your head, do you write the story first, the plot, or do you write the characters and just write for them and then see where that fits in later, or do you start the story at the start and work through it to the end?
Sure. It can be any number of those things. I think my old school train of thought, which is something I teach in my writing workshops, and quick plug, I do one-to-one writing tuition and I do group writing tuition. So for people with scripts, particularly good for first-time writers, just look me up, find me on Facebook, drop me a message, and we'll talk about that. That could be really important going forward financially for me.
Absolutely. All the links, by the way, are in the description below. And just so people know, as I said at the start of the show, this is the 9th live stream. It will be episode 11 in Series 1, and it will launch officially on all the major platforms, as well as the video aspect, i.e. this, on YouTube on June 15th at 2 p.m.
This is the only episode that's going to be 6 hours long, because we've only got through one of the things we wanted to talk about so far.
My God, yeah. Wow.
So I don't have a single technique, but what I was going to say was the one thing I will always do above all else is I will write the strongest idea first. So, for example, the Outcasts' next play, the one we definitely knew we wanted to do, was going to be a modern adaptation of Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what?
We thought it would be fun to do a Christmas play with the Outcasts, and me and Dickon were talking about what could we do, and I came up with the idea that we should do Christmas Carol with Scrooge played by Trump.
Oh, so that's fun.
It would be a modern version of Scrooge, but with Trump as Scrooge. And it would be, we came up with an ending which I think works and fits with Trump. So I already know what the ending is. And the first idea that I came up with, because you're obviously what you're doing is essentially remaking a Dickensian existing piece of work, but putting a modern spin on it. Mm-hmm. So you know what the key scenes need to be, but you just need to know what the modern version of those key scenes are. So there's a scene in Christmas Carol. So if we think back to the traditional definitive version of Christmas Carol, which as we all know is the Muppets Christmas Carol, there's the scene where Fred goes to visit his relatives, played by excellent actor Stephen McIntosh, who was in Bugsy Malone with me.
Oh yeah, he's good.
And, he was in a different cast to me, but he was in Bugsy Malone with Catherine Zeta-Jones, I think, was in his cast. And he plays Scrooge's nephew, and he goes to visit the relatives, and they play the guessing game, and Scrooge is there with the ghost of Christmas present on Christmas Day, and he's talking about somebody who's foul-tempered and everything, and then Fred's wife gets it and goes, "I know who you're talking about. It's Uncle Scrooge." And all the relatives go, "Oh, yeah, huh." And I said, wouldn't that scene be great if on Christmas Day all the world leaders were having a secret Christmas dinner, and it was like, the head of North Korea was there, and you've got Putin and, but Boris Johnson and whatever, and they're all sitting around having this Christmas dinner, but Trump is the one world leader that's not been invited. Mm-hmm. And they're all talking about him in that same context, and they're playing the guessing game, and the guessing game is, which leader didn't we invite? And it's Trump. So that scene was the scene that I wrote first for that script.
Mm-hmm. And that's the script that you wrote for your group Outcasts.
It's not just a It's not my group. It's mine and Dick and Tolson's. It's a
Oh,
theatre.
beg your pardon.
It's a theatre production company / theatre school
Mm-hmm.
that we came up with together. Hasn't made a penny yet, but it's an idea that we're trying to build on over time. And we started. This is all to do with Graham Fletcher Cook. Maybe
Yeah, I was just going to say that as we talk about the Outcast, or as you talk about it, I'm just going to pop up a slideshow of Graham Fletcher Cook and also of Angela on the screen, because I know these people are mean a great deal to you. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't know Graham, but I worked with his brother very, very briefly on Rocket Man,
Right.
Dexter. Yeah.
Dexter, a shout out. I mean, if you want to know about my relationship with Graham, if you go on my blog page on diamondsinthesky.com, the blog that I did under the 100 Letters blog is a dedication to Graham, who very sadly passed away around this time last year. Actually, it was May of last year. And how I met Graham was he used to run a improvisation acting workshop called Timber Theatre at Jackson's Lane, and it was started by Dexter Fletcher, Graham's brother, and Graham back in the mid-90s, I think. And I started going there in 97, and it was just a wonderful breeding ground of talent, phenomenal actors, all kinds of ages, races, and types of people, some wonderful, quirky people. Met some amazing actors there, Zoe Nathanson, Steve Bowyer, David Fisher, Mo Nazam, Bernard Pellegrinitti. It's a long list, loads of names. Some I can't remember. Mo and Tam Solo. All lovely, lovely people, and so many of them ended up working on different shows or film projects of mine. And I met all of these people because of Graham. And people went to that class because of Graham and his way that he had with people, and running a drama class with that level of talent and energy, with so many big characters in the room, let me tell you, is not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And when Graham passed away, and not long before that, he'd been trying to revive Timber. Me and Dickon, who both actually taught at Graham's class, because there were periods where he couldn't run it. And I think I ran it for about 1.5 years. I think Dickon ran it for about 2 years, and another actor called Peter Swavignon ran it for about 2.5 years. And we were the other teachers, and Peter's living in Yugoslavia now, I think, or somewhere like that. Myself and Dickon said, we should do something similar. Why don't we start something up? And we had a conversation with Graham's wife, Jeanette. This is after he passed away. Jeanette Monero, absolutely lovely woman. And said, would you like us to carry on his legacy? We're thinking about doing classes, but do you want us to call it Timber, or shall we call it something else? And at first she said, oh, no, you call it Timber, you do what you want with it. And then I think on reflection, she then thought actually Timber was always Graham. And we didn't mind, but we were completely sort of, whatever you want. We just felt kind of inspired to kind of, I think it gave us a bit of a kick up the arse. I mean, I was in a really bad place when Graham passed away anyway. I had a lot going on in my life, none of it good. And I think it really brought some things into focus for me and Dickon, who was also going through a bad time. And we said, look, let's get together, let's do something, let's do a play before the end of the year. Let's organise some acting classes before the end of the year. And that's how Borderlands and The Outcast came about. So I got entirely got Graham to thank for that. And at Graham's life celebration, I'll call it that because that's what they wanted to call it, Dexter was there. And I've met Dexter before. We know each other. And Dexter, of course, directed Rocket Man more recently.
Yeah, it's the Elton John story.
It was a really hard day, and I've never been so wasted in all my life because it was free Prosecco all day. I must have had about 15 glasses. And I was so drunk by the end of it. I was speaking, but my words were coming out backwards. So I thought, yeah, I've definitely got to get home now.
Yeah, time to call it a day. And of course, there is Graham on screen right now reading your book, and of course the second person in that series of 3 pictures is unfortunately also no longer with us. Is Angela.
Right, Angela Thomas. So Angela Thomas was somebody that I knew back from the days when she worked on Bad Girls, and then we met again on the set of the Marchioness disaster, which was a film which, ironically, I also did the play on that subject, and that was the first time we got to meet properly. I met her before, but not properly, and we really connected because she was also adopted. We're both adopted, and that was kind of what brought us together. And it was about,
I didn't know that.
She passed away from a brain hemorrhage thing, which I also had a few years earlier to her.
Wow.
Which is a story we can talk about, I guess. And I've got a big scar in my brain. I've got brain damage in my brain. I had a blood clot about this big.
Wow.
And, put me in a coma for a few weeks and intensive care for about 6 weeks. I was in hospital for about 3.5 months. I think this is in 2005. And it was very, very close call. Not my first either. And
damn.
And so that sort of near. Do you know who was sitting on the end of my bed when I came out of my coma? Jason Fleming with a bacon sandwich. Get that down, you Lancey. Come out of this, and I'm like, I'm in heaven. Why is Jason Fleming here? And it was like,
why has he got a bacon buddy with him?
So Angela asked me if I would help her write the play about her life, which was a really dark subject about child abuse and incest and all this horrible stuff.
Damn.
And similar to a lot of the things that Johnny Hansler went through. I've also worked with Johnny a couple of times.
Johnny's an absolute sweetheart.
You're good, very dear friend of mine and a lovely man.
Absolutely.
And it was a big responsibility to do that piece of work, and we were working on it together, and we'd only been working on it, we met about 3 times, but we shared a lot of really intimate stuff. And then this was in 2009. It was the summer of 2009. And then the next thing, I get a call from somebody, because we were supposed to meet to go and see a Harry Potter film, and she was in hospital, and she had the same thing that I had. And I rushed in to see her, and actually I was the last person with her before she went into her coma. And there's this sort of quite well-known story about I went out to the bus stop and I came back in again, and that's all in the film The Journey, and which was all sort of about what happened to me after that, which led to me going to Greece and a whole load of other things that we could talk about until the cows come home. But so Graham and Angela, in their own way, Graham especially much earlier, 97 I met Graham, and then Angela, who I got to know really well, I think in about 2004, and then more so in 2008 was when we reconnected. We reconnected on MySpace, funnily enough, and then she said, "Will you help me write this play about my life?" And we got really close, and we were really similar. She was like a female version of me, and then boom, suddenly she was gone. Oh, it was really hard. It was a really, really difficult thing, and I've lost a lot of friends under the age of 40, and quite a lot of my work has been about dealing with bereavement and dealing with loss and subjects around that nature, where people have been impacted by loss, because I've always been able to relate to that subject. So that's why I ended up doing the play about the Hillsborough football disaster and the Marchioness disaster, and it wasn't because I thought these things were commercially viable, because they weren't really. I just thought that they were important subjects that I could get into. I could get my head into the psychology of the people that had experienced those things and do them justice, and write something worthy for them, and try and contribute socially towards those causes. At one point as well in my life, I was told, you know, Mr. Nielsen, you've got 18 months to live. And I was like, fuck. So I kind of made a list of things that I wanted to do. And on that list was kind of pieces of work that I thought were important. So I sort of did one of these pieces of work, and I was still around, and I thought, right, well, I'll do the next one on the list. And things like money and getting a mortgage and all that stuff were not really important because I didn't think I was going to be here. And then, didn't all go that way, and I'm still here however many years later. But I'm still dealing with an awful lot. But that's one of the reasons why I always picked subjects that I thought were important socially. And because you don't want to do another play about relationships that no one's going to remember in 6 months, about middle-class people sitting in a lounge talking about their relationship gripes. So many plays about those. That was the first thing the Hen and Chicken said to us when we pitched them Borderlands, and they said, "Is it a play about relationships?" And I went, "No, it's a play about immigration and social divide." And with a little bit of Brexit thrown in, and they said, "Fucking great, that sounds good." But so that's how Graham Fletcher Cook, who I will be dedicating my next film to, whatever it is. I promised Dexter, and I need to give Steve Fletcher, the third brother, a shout out as well, because of all the people that I met at Graham's funeral, he is the one who actually became a bit of a shoulder for me to cry on. And obviously he's feeling Graham's loss 10 times more than me. But him have had quite a few late night chats when I've been feeling down on Facebook, and he doesn't know this, but he's actually helped me. He helped me get through that quite a bit. So I need to give Steve Fletcher a shout out. And his
Absolutely.
So him and Angela probably shaped my career creatively more than any other two people I can think of.
Okay. That nicely brings us on from one rather heavy and harrowing story, or line of stories, to something completely different. This time, we're heading for the skies. You decided to turn your hand to writing a fictitious novel called Diamonds in the Sky.
I did.
And we're going to pop the cover up on the screen right now. That's is that actress right there? Is that the same one from Howard's movie Adventure Boys?
That is Angela Dixon.
Angela Dixon, I thought so, yeah.
Who is a fantastic actress. She's an actress I would dearly love to play the role that actually she's portraying on the cover of the book, who's the character of Diana. What to say about Diamonds in the Sky? Diamonds in the Sky was written to be a TV series, and it's a television series about a dozen characters set all over the world, and what happens to them when 200 alien ships arrive that look like these massive spinning top things, and they drill down into the earth. Nothing comes out of them. No one can get in, and but things on the earth start to change. And all I'm going to say is the barrier between the rich and the poor becomes completely non-existent. So that's where the show is going. It's quite a big social commentary, and it's quite weird because it really ties into a lot of what's going on with the pandemic. And don't forget, I wrote this book 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
China plays a major role in the story, so it's quite weird.
Is it coincidence, or do you have some sort of an inside scoop that I don't know about?
No, I have no inside scoop. I just wanted to write something which I thought would be funny, engaging, interesting. I'm a big UFO guy. I'm a big
Same.
UFO.
I love my sci-fi. Yeah. I just read today, not to digress because we will definitely, but I just read today. Just side note, Elon Musk. So the guy from Tesla and SpaceX and so on, and okay, I'm gonna have to tell people what this little guy means. But Tom Cruise is going literally to space with Elon to make his movie, whatever the next movie is. I don't know, but he's literally leaving the planet. See the little guy that just popped up there? That's Lance's cue for me that I'm waffling too much apparently.
It's a special software that Jay had me download, and if either of us waffle too much, what happens is this little person starts popping up on the screen. So quite a good software app you need to get. I understand that Sean Cronin's downloaded it, so it's going to be very useful for him.
No comment.
I love Sean.
Okay, we're going to jump over to the comments real quick. We've got a bunch of people watching in. Edwina Forkin. Hey, Edwina, how's things? She's a wonderful producer from Ireland, runs Zanzibar Films. She's watching in as well, so you never know. She might pick up pitch.
I'm always looking, I'll say this now, I'm always looking for producers. I also don't have an agent for my writing, and I really want one. It goes without saying, but I'm always looking for producers. Good producers are really hard to find. I'm working with a wonderful producer at the minute called Nicola Gregory.
She's great, yeah.
I'll talk about her a bit later because that connects to one of the projects we're going to mention. And she's one of the best I've worked with, and honest, probably the only honest one, and completely honest. But she's fantastic, and I'd recommend her to a lot of people. And her fella Dean Charles, who's a director,
Mm-hmm.
and another one of the kind of the crowdfunding generation of directors. What other comments? You said there were some other comments.
Yeah. So I mean, we're actually working with Edwina. She's she runs Zanzibar Films in Dublin, which is one of the main top three by far top three film companies in the country, and has done some incredible films that you all will know and love. And her producer Lorcan as well is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, get your comments into Lance. Anything you'd like to ask or say or chime into the conversation, you can certainly do so via Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. So just pop your messages into the comments in the relevant players, and we will certainly get them over. Okay, Brian 1842 from New York apparently is asking when and where can we pick up a copy of Diamonds in the Sky, because he, like us, is also a big fan of sci-fi.
Okay, so Diamonds in the Sky, which obviously because I'm not powerful enough to commission it as a TV show, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a Game of Thrones. I'm going to write a book. I've never written a novel before. You can get this on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jay, if you want to Google it on Amazon quickly, or actually I can send you the link. But
yeah, I can pop the link up on the window here on the screen, and of course, as always, all the relevant links, including the Amazon purchase link and so forth, will be in the description in the box below. So what we're going to do actually now is we're going to play a little trailer that you guys made maybe last year.
Let's just be clear about that. This is a short film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a self-contained short film. It's not a trailer, but it doubled as a promotional material for the book, and it's set within the world of the book. But my plan to sort of complement the book series was to make a series of short films that would just work as short films on their own,
mm-hmm.
but are set within the world of the book. And the one you're going to show is the first one we did with my amazing actor friend Will Johnson, who played Aslan in The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe at the Bridge recently.
Awesome. Well, let's give it a spin. How good does that look, huh? Of course, as we said, guys, that's available on Amazon right now. If you just give me a minute, I'm just going to go give Chris Nolan a quick call and see is he busy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with that book series, so just so you know, the pilot for the show has been written. In fact, I've written the first 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've got a producer interested who wants to pitch it, let me know. I've got about 7 well-known actors attached to it, including Will Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
and mostly British. I've written a part in both the book and the show, especially for 2 of my favourite actors. I'm going to tell you who they are.
Oh, thanks so much. You shouldn't have.
One of them is Rhys Darby. Rhys Darby is the guy who plays the band manager on Flight of the Conchords. Got any gigs, Murray?
Oh, yeah.
Band meeting. Murray present, you know, that guy.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Rhys Darby, and I sent him a copy of the book. And I said to him, your character's coming in the second book. So his character actually appears on someone else's video in the first book. But because I know Rhys Darby's a huge UFO nut, and I really want to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the best way of giving myself a chance of working with him is writing him a character in one of my scripts. So I wrote him a character both in a script and a book, doubling my efforts. So I've sent him a copy of the book, and he's got it. And you know, I don't know what he thinks of it, but he got it, and he wrote me a very nice email to say thank you very much.
Awesome.
I've also written a part for Peter Dinklage.
Ooh, Peter Dinklage. Okay. Love Peter.
Definitely right up there in my top 10 list of actors I want to work with, who I hope I still have a chance of working with in my lifetime. And I thought, what would be the 2 best actors to put in scenes together in Diamonds in the Sky that would just be great to watch? Peter Dinklage and Rhys Darby. So in the story, the 2 characters that I've based on them in the book end up sharing nearly all their scenes together. This is in book 2, by the way, because book 1, Perosia, doesn't feature the character, definitely not based on Peter Dinklage, but is very much like Peter Dinklage. And the Rhys Darby character don't really appear. Rhys Darby's character, or the character based on someone who looks like Rhys Darby, is in the first book a little bit. But all the other characters, including all the minor characters, were all based on actors that I either knew or wanted to work with, or actors that are friends of mine, or people just on my friends list. So everybody in the book was based on somebody, so I could picture them and hear their dialogue. And I find that quite a useful technique, especially when writing a book, which I'd never written before. I hadn't done a book. It was a new thing for me. And the second novel is going to be a lot less wordy. The first one was a bit overwritten. I think a lot of novelists who are new, including myself, I consider myself very much a virgin in that territory. I think we probably have a tendency to overwrite. Just as first-time script writers, that's their biggest issue. They have a tendency to overwrite. And I think I had that same tendency writing the book. So the second book is going to be very stripped back. I learned so much writing the first Diamonds in the Sky book. It's on Amazon now. I've just sent you the link.
Okay.
If you check on Skype, I sent you the link. It's there.
Okay,
and,
cool.
People can just order it. If you're in America, you should order it via Amazon.com. If you're in the UK, order it via Amazon.co.uk. If you're in America, don't order it via .co.uk. It takes about 7 weeks to arrive.
Ooh.
If you order it via .com, it will be there within a week. You know?
Yeah.
In the UK, it normally arrives in 72 hours. So.
Side note: Did you manage to get the first book? You said you reached out to one of the 2 actors. Did you manage to get it to Peter?
Oh God, no! I haven't even. Because Dinklage, got to be careful what I say here for legal reasons. I think the character that is loosely based on someone who looks like Peter Dinklage, but not based on Peter Dinklage.
Gotcha.
Or let's just say is a role that it would be suitable for him to play if it ever became a TV show.
Gotcha.
That character is in book 2.
Okay.
And so when book 2 is out and in print, I'm about halfway through book 2 at the minute. I'm behind on book 2. I'm really behind on it. I will send Peter a copy, but I'll do it via the appropriate thing. I will write to him via his agent. And in fact, the second book is dedicated to a number of people, and one of the people it's dedicated to is Peter and Rhys Darby.
Okay.
The other person it's dedicated to is a transgender friend of mine. There's a transsexual character in Diamonds in the Sky, is one of the main characters. She's in the first book, and she's based on two transsexual friends of mine, one of whom was murdered in London in, I think it was 2028, beginning of 2018, she was murdered. It was all over the news.
Jesus.
Yeah, and the guy who got done went down.
Hate crime or some other form of a crime?
Basically, was a guy.
Okay, we seem to be having a little bit of technical issue here. We've, for some reason, just dropped the call on Lance, so we are at the mercy of the internet. So let's see if we can get him back. Okay, I tell you what we're going to do. I am going to pop for you up on the screen the link that Lance just mentioned, where you can go and get Diamonds in the Sky on Amazon. As he mentioned, if you're in the UK, go via amazon.co.uk, and if you're in the States, it's .com. We're going to run the trailer because a number of people are saying they missed the trailer for Lance's Diamonds in the Sky series, his book series. So we're going to run that again and see if we can't get Lance back on the phone at the other end of these.